the Chicago Bears, where a little peek at their offseason so far. They obviously retained Kyler Gordon, made him, the highest paid slot corner in football, even if not technically the highest paid slot corner. They advertised it as such. They added a bunch of guys. Obviously, head coach Ben Johnson, probably chief amongst them, but a complete overhaul of their offensive and defensive lines. You added both new guards and Joe Thuney at left guard, Jonah Jackson at right guard, your new center and Drew Dahlman, new defensive tackle Grady Jarrett, new edge rusher Dayo Odeyingbo. Some key losses: Tevin Jenkins, Keenan Allen, Coleman Shelton, all starters or saw starting time. Really, the only one amongst them that they might feel the loss of is Tevin Jenkins, but he just couldn't stay healthy. That's why he signed for as little as he did. His back issues, I believe, are just debilitating, or could be debilitating at this point in his career. And then in the draft, all they did is went out and added some weapons for young quarterback Caleb Williams, Colston Loveland, Michigan tight end, Luther Burden, the Missouri wide receiver. I want to hear your grade before I give mine, because I'm a little afraid of how good the Chicago Bears offseason has been. And I say that as someone who's not been on the train of, they're talked about as offseason winners year in, year out, or at least have been kind of in the Ryan Poles era. I haven't gone that far in years past, but I'm curious to see your thoughts before I give mine.
I'm going to give them an A, and I'm not just being a homer here. We've covered this thing from the inception of the thought that Ben Johnson could inherit Caleb Williams and be able to tailor make his offense. And then we watched Ryan Poles get on board, obviously, with Ben Johnson and his image, going and getting Jonah Jackson and Joe Thuney. I think the Joe Thuney one was really the icing on the cake. They would have had a good offseason regardless without Joe Thuney, but this makes it great. You talked about the additions to the defensive line with Dayo Odeyingbo and Grady Jarrett. Obviously, we want to see if Grady Jarrett still got the juice that he became feared for having. The other guy, Drew Dahlman, center from the Atlanta Falcons, now a Chicago Bear, took less money, in fact, to become a Chicago Bear. Drew Dahlman, an athletic center, somebody that I think Ben Johnson can utilize as a spearhead in some of his creative concepts, getting the center out in space. We've seen it happen in Philadelphia a number of times, obviously with Jason Kelsey prior to their new look group, and they're still doing the same thing. Centers can be a weapon. Drew Dahlman, I really believe, will be a weapon. We go to the draft. Colston Loveland, not the guy that I had mocked, but somebody that I was very happy to hear his name called because he can do it all. He can do it all. And you know what? We love Tyler Warren because he lined up at quarterback and we interviewed him. But I was thrilled when Loveland was drafted. Luther Burden, a guy that we talked about during the draft process as being truly elite level skills, but some question marks about Monday through Saturday.
Yeah.
We don't know where he is from Monday to Saturday, but he shows up on game day on Saturday night and he plays his butt off. The Bears are going to get that. And with Caleb Williams, you have that superstar effect at the quarterback position. And he is the tide that raises all ships around him. And I think with the offensive line additions, it's going to be great in Chicago. It's going to be a new look team. And I think obviously Caleb Williams makes a massive leap in year 2.
Yeah, I gave him an A, man. And a big part of it is Ben Johnson. It just is. I thought he was the kind of crown jewel in this head coaching cycle. And not only just that, I don't know how he's going to be as necessarily a head coach, but what kind of offensive mind he is. He at a minimum is at the forefront of the offensive revolution in the NFL. You are going to get a guy who, I said this I was on the Barstool Chicago podcast last week, and they were actually they were almost a little scared when I said this. I was like, there is no excuse with what they've done this offseason for Caleb Williams. This is everything that you could possibly want for a quarterback to succeed. They have done it. They have given him that. And it almost makes you nervous because it's you have to look at it and be if this doesn't turn out to be, what we saw in Detroit from Ben Johnson, if this isn't a top 5 offense in the NFL, there is a finger to point to about who's holding it back, because we know that Joe Thuney ain't holding it back, right? We know that these receivers that they now have aren't going to be what's holding it back. We know that Ben Johnson, given his track record, what he did with Jared Goff isn't what's holding him back. So it is a little scary to think about, but it's also if he hits, if he becomes the guy that was promised, this could be, even better than, like, even scarier than what we saw in Detroit a year ago from that offense when they were really humming. So
I got to respond to that.
Let's hear it.
So we're saying we're going to point the finger at Caleb Williams if they're not.
I'm saying
you're saying that the Ducks are in a row for him to have success, and I agree with you. But what is one thing that Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles and George McCaskey, what's one thing they can't give Caleb Williams? More experience, and that will come with time. I wrote down two other things that stand out to me. Ben Johnson as a head coach. You mentioned it, obviously brilliant on the offensive side of the ball and somebody who implements groundbreaking things week in, week out. I had a coach like that my rookie year. His name was Mark Trestman. The Bears, I believe, were a top 3 offense. We were abysmal on defense. We couldn't survive defensively. But we were great on offense, but we were 8-8. So there is always, how's the defense going to hold up? The other thing, this Bears team isn't used to winning yet. And winning games and being a winner are two different things. Like, you can win a couple games early, but we don't know how to finish. Or you could go on a run late, but we haven't been to the dance together. This is going to be a really important season for the Bears. Obviously, a lot of lofty goals that we've put out there and milestones to reach. But at the end of the day, they will have gained a ton of experience throughout this course of the season. They're going to win more than last year. I just wonder if they're ready to take the next leap because it's a big one.
It's difficult because also the leap's going to have to come through 3 teams that all won 11-plus games last year. Who didn't necessarily – no one cut bait in terms of their roster. The Vikings added to their roster. The Lions kind of held firm and get a lot back on defense. There's no one of those 3 above them that's like, oh, yeah, they're going to take a big step back. They lost a lot. No. So for the Bears to make the leap after 5 wins last year, projected at 8.5 wins by Vegas, and that's juice now to the under that total, it's going to have to come basically from the top. It's going to have to come with Caleb Williams making that big jump, and we'll see. Year 2. I lean – gosh, what do you lean at 8.5? I think I have to punt on this one. I don't have I think that's where right around where I see them ending up is 8 or 9.
We're going to win total?
Yeah.
10.
Okay. So you're going over.
I
think that's right where I just think the North is too tough. Unfortunately, I think too many, it's just going to be difficult to win games in that division this year.
I think the outdoor teams will do well this season. I think that Minnesota could experience a step back because of lack of set experience at the quarterback position. I think that Detroit is going to experience not necessarily a free fall, but a dose of reality with human beings calling the plays on the offensive side of the ball. And I know that they have in-house people that have stepped up to the plate on both sides of the football as it pertains to the staff, but you can't replicate Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. You just can't.